All right, cool. Like I said, any questions I can answer for you guys, shoot them off in the comments. I will try and get to them as long as I see them. But let's get rolling here. I mean it this time. All right, what's up, everybody? Welcome back. If you're new here, welcome to the channel. Today we're going to go over one of the biggest conversation pieces that I have regarding real estate when folks are looking to buy. And that's if you're looking to buy a home here in the Inland Empire or anywhere else in Riverside County, San Bernardino County. So let's take a look at it. Here's the deal. The housing market right now, it's unlike anything we've seen in years, possibly ever. I've been doing this about 11 years. I've never seen anything like this. Prices in the Inland Empire, we are averaging about 600,000 across Riverside County and San Bernardino County collectively. Locally, you can find homes anywhere, low 400s and then easily over $1 million. Despite the economy, war, all the negative press, mortgage rates, which are consistently around 6.3%, depending on the week. Today's buyers are out here trying to figure out, do I buy a brand new home or do I go with resale? What's best for me? What's best for my budget? What's best for my family? And here's what I don't see a lot of good information about. The answer is really not as simple as what you would think. Until the last few years, new construction, when you're looking at new construction, prior to 2022, 2023, automatically you knew you were going to spend a little bit more to get into that home. That's no longer the case here in 2026. With resale, it used to mean more negotiating power. You had better locations, better infrastructure, but really in today's market, that's not exactly true. And that's what I plan on going over today. So by the end of this live, my goal is for you to know which options are actually going to put more money back in your pocket. What are the tentative hidden costs that could wreck your budget if you're not paying attention? What builders in SoCal, what are they offering right now? What are the best incentives? What are the best rates? What are the best buys? And what should you be looking for and what should you be asking for when you're walking into these new build communities? And really, whether you're looking in Ontario, Temecula, Murrieta, Menifee, Moville, Corona, or even San Jacinto, it doesn't matter. This information is applicable across the board. Now, if you are watching the replay, drop a comment down below. Let me know what city has your interest. And if you are here live with me, say what's up in the chat. Tell me where you're watching from. I'd love to see where you guys are checking in from. Real quick about me, my name is Justin King. I've been practicing real estate out in Southern California for the last about 11 years. I've been going full-time since 2015, full-time. Haven't really done anything else since then. If you have any questions, after this or anything I can answer specifically, feel free to reach out, call, text, comment, email, what have you. My information will be pinned in the first comment. Also, it is in the description below. Okay, now let's do a little market recap of what's going on in the area before we get into anything. And the areas I'm specifically going to be looking at are, mostly Riverside County, also San Bernardino County. So if there's any cities you want to see specifically covered, leave it in the comments and I will, show you all the data points that we can find on it. So I wanted to look at what the actual median price points are, days on market are, and then we'll get into the subject matter. So we'll look at San Bernardino County and Riverside County. This is a tool that I like to use. This is called InfoSparks. Median sales price across the entire state right now is about 830,000. San Bernardino County, you're about 530,000. Riverside County, you're at about 605,000. Now, days active in the MLS has been rising, not by a ton. You can see beginning of the year, it jumped up quite a bit, and we are coming more into spring season. Things are a little bit slower than we anticipated, but they are up quite a bit year over year. So entire MLS, average days on market is about 17 days on market. San Bernardino is 26, Riverside is 32. So what that means is once homes are listed on the market until they get a contract where they're actually in escrow, Riverside, you're about 32 days, San Bernardino 26. If we wanted to break it down by city, I won't bore you with all that right now. It could be, some are as low as 17, some are as high as Menifee. I was looking at Menifee the other day. Menifee's about 50 days on market right now. So despite us being in a spring market, things are a little bit slower than we were projecting. Coming into the season, going through our winter months, were actually a lot busier than they have been in years past. We're seeing a slower spring. A lot of reasons for that. Rates haven't done what people want. A lot of negative press out there. The war in Iran is definitely not helping us. Now, with that, I will say, once that war kicked off, or whatever they're calling it now, I keep seeing different names for it. The feeling around the market was we were going to see 7% rates. Right before that whole thing kicked off, rates were about 5.9, 5.8. They jumped up to about 6.5. They settled back down to about 6.3. So, like I said, February we were about 5.9. That's when we really start to see them officially break into the fives and out of the sixes. Now we're kind of sitting where we've been really the last year. The last year or so, we've been right around 6.2 to 6.4. So technically, we're still in what's called a seller's market. What that is, real quick, anything with days inventory over 6 months. So when we have over 6 months inventory, under 6 months inventory, we're in a seller's market. Anything over 6 months is going to be a buyer's market. Right now, we're sitting right around 3 to 3.5, depending on the week. We were kind of coming down less, but this is the closest we've been to a buyer's market in a couple of years, really. It was kind of, we were shifting into buyers. Now days on market's up, so it's still kind of a seller's market, but it's about as good of time as any I've seen. As far as buyers, you got more inventory, more negotiating power. Days on market's up, so it's going to mean those buyers are a little more hungry. There's more competition to sell their homes. There's more options for buyers. So property A doesn't work out for them, they could go on to property B, see if they could get their terms. Now, like I said before, in the past, if you were looking at new builds, you just knew you were going to pay more. Last couple of years, that's not really the case. They're really closing the gap on affordability, between resale and new homes. And now, if you are watching this, replay or live, if you are looking at homes or you are thinking about something in the next 6 to 9 months, are you leaning more towards new construction? Or are you leaning more towards resale? Drop it in the comments. I love to see your guys' responses. Most of my reach outs, most of my contacts from people calling me directly, they're looking at new builds. About 50% of those end up going resell though, just for whatever reason. And after we go through these slides, hopefully you can kind of see why. I think it'll make clear why people would go resell. Okay, so now what are some of the advantages? I'm going to go over pros, cons on each. Resell, new build. We'll do new build first because I know that's a little more interesting, a little more eye candy, a little more exciting. So now with new builds, the big allure to them, it's brand new. Nobody's ever lived there before. You don't have that 30, 40 years of turnover. Different people doing different repairs. That probably aren't the best. So it's brand new, it's yours, it's a blank canvas, never lived in. And with new builds, you could buy it at various stages. You could buy it from a dirt lot and develop it up, or you can catch one of the quick move-ins. That's usually where you're going to get your best deals. And typically what those are, homes that have fallen out of escrow. Somebody started the process, decided against it, things didn't work out, and that happens. So one of the nice things about it being brand new, you got new roof, new plumbing, new electrical, new appliances typically. And now what you have covering all that, you're going to have your warranties covering the structure, systems, workmanship. With most new builds, you're going to have a year warranty for any sort of workmanship. Now when you get into like the plumbing, electrical, roof, you could have warranties anywhere from 5 years to 20 years. Also with the new builds, one of the big perks, you're not going to find anything more energy efficient on the resale market. You're going to have, the newest technology with the solar panels, the windows, the stucco even, insulation. So it's going to be as energy efficient as anything else you're going to find on the market. Some of them you could have smart home tech, meaning that you don't have to go through and retrofit everything and start all that. And if you buy early enough, like I said, if you're starting from a dirt lot, you have way more customization options. So you're picking the flooring, you're picking the counters, you're picking the cabinets, you're picking the hardware like the drawer pulls. That goes a long way. And the biggest perk with new builds, I will say, the thing that I think gets most people excited about them is a lot of the incentives that the builders are offering now. Now, not all two builders are created the same. I've seen some builders offering up to 40 grand, in incentive, rate buy down, cash to close, etc. I've seen a lot of new builders, especially the last couple months, they just took away most of those incentives. The biggest one I saw, I had a new builder offering $47,000 on some of their quick move-ins. They reduced that down to $15,000 through January and February. Now, with the way market's kind of been slowing down, a lot of those are coming back. And like I said, I see some builders that they don't offer much, maybe 5 grand, and even that's not going to be enough to buy your rate down. Like I said, the biggest perk is those incentives. What you can use those incentives for, and this would be my recommendation, is buying that rate down. When you're buying that rate down, you're taking it from like a 6% to like a 4.5. That's going to save you about $400 or $500 a month. And a lot of them, I just covered a couple in some of my longer form videos, the edited versions, where they're offering $25,000 free solar, free appliances, and then window coverings. Window covering sounds kind of silly, but when factor in probably about what, like $100 a window for a covering, you got 17 windows. That's going to be about $1,700. Little bit goes a long way. Now, some of the cons with the new construction. This is going to be the most frustrating, is going to be the construction delays. I have a few buyers. Doesn't happen as much anymore, but I did have a community where they were delayed by about 3 to 5 months. So, if you're trying to plan around that rental, you went back and lived with family to kind of save up for that down payment while your new home was being built. 3 to 5 months, that hurts. That's a long process. When you factor in, if you're looking at resale, typically the process on our end is maybe about 35 to 60 days. And that's going to be looking at homes. That's going to be writing offers, going through offers, counter offers, inspection periods. So on the resale side, you could be in a home as soon as about 30 days. Construction delays on the new build side, there's really just nothing we can do about that. Timelines, they don't always go exactly how we plan, and it's out of our control on a lot of times. Another con with some of the new builds, if you're looking for something more affordable, newer, the issue I have come up for a lot of folks is you're going to be located a little bit further out. So if you're looking in Riverside, you want that newer construction, you end up in Moreno Valley, factor about 20 extra minutes, going east. One of the hottest communities now, or one of the hottest cities for new builds, is going to be San Jacinto. One of the biggest drawbacks about the city of San Jacinto, there's no direct freeway access, so you're driving about 20 minutes on a highway before you actually get to the freeway. So if commute's a big thing for you, reach out. I'll send you my favorite ones for you, but that's definitely something to consider. Another con or drawback with some of the new builds, immature landscape, the infrastructure, the community is a lot newer. So when you drive in, it still looks flat. You don't have those mature trees. You don't have that established shopping center. You don't have those established schools in some cases too. And that takes time to develop. So if you're getting on the ground floor, super cool. You're going to get the best deal possible, but you're going to be waiting for that infrastructure to come in. One of the big knocks on the city of Beaumont up until probably the last 5 years was a lot of people moving from like Moreno Valley, Riverside. When they were trying to get out of town to go do something fun, they were ending up back at Moreno Valley, Riverside, Redlands to really cut loose and go do something. Another con with new builds, or something to consider, is you have limited negotiation space on the base price. So typically with their base price, that's the lowest they'll accept, and demand has been hot enough for the last couple of years that they don't really have to move on that base price. And the builders are looking at that thinking, okay, this is funding for the next phase, because when they launch these new construction communities, they launch them in phases. They sell through phase 1. Now they have funding money for phase 2 and 3. So they know their price until it sits for a while. They're typically going to sit on that price pretty hard. Now, that's not to say they may want that price, but we can negotiate something on the back end, like more closing costs, more perks thrown in, like appliances, like those window coverings, or even negotiate on the seller side. And one of the other drawbacks with the new builds, it's really hard to find something without an HOA. If you go out to San Jacinto, there's a few out there without HOAs, but for the most part, most new builds, HOA is going to be very common practice. And one of the other ones I didn't list here, and this is probably the biggest drawback that I talk to people about with new construction, is the property taxes are always higher. If you find like a small development, something like 7 to 8 units where it's just a small developer making it, usually they can get away with keeping that base tax rate of about 1.2%. But on new construction homes, pretty much the going rate's going to be right around 2%. I saw one the other day, it was about 2.2%. I've seen some that were closer to about 1.8, but just factor about 2% taxes. Now, what does that mean for your pocketbook? If you're looking at new build versus resale at $600,000, your difference in payment between that tax rate is probably about 500-600 bucks a month. So it goes a long way. It doesn't sound like a ton, but that tax base can absolutely blow up that pre-approval that you had. So if you went to Chase Bank or your credit union, you got a pre-approval for $500,000, and you take that to a new build, your pre-approval actually is probably closer to about 450. The reason for that is because when they're pre-approving you, any lender, your bank, credit union, direct lender, realtor's lender, they're pre-approving you essentially on a monthly payment. So they can't really say, yeah, you're good for $500,000 wherever you look. It's $500,000 with these, built-ins. So meaning that interest rate, those property taxes, that HOA, if you have one factored in, they're pre-approving you for that amount. And that's basically what translates to your overall purchase price. And one tip I do really need to mention is builder reps. They work for the builder. So if you walk in without a realtor, they're negotiating for the builder. They're understanding that you probably don't know what you can get or what you're looking at. So if there are extra incentives that they're not advertising publicly or advertising to our broker open events, the buyer typically doesn't know about those. So you potentially could be leaving money on the table. So if you are looking at a new build and you are working with a realtor, always let them know first. Always take them in on your first visit. Otherwise, the builder will try and cut them out. Sorry, phone's going off. So super, super important. Doesn't seem like a lot, but I have had a lot of buyers that just cruise around. They see a new build community, think, hey, let's stop in without me. And then I can't represent them. Now, with that said, once you get to that point and you go under contract with a new build and you don't have your realtor with you, we can't really give advice because you're under contract and the builder is representing you at that point. So we can't give you specific advice on how to negotiate or look at the contract and say, hey, this is where they're hosing you. We can kind of give you a blanket statement, but we risk losing our licenses if we get involved on the other side and we're not part of that contract. Another thing, I don't really talk about it much on here. If you do bring an agent to a new build, you're not paying them. The builder will pay for their commission fees. So it's really no harm, no foul on your end. Don't see any questions about that. So let's go on to the next topic here. Okay, so now let's go into the resale side and pros, cons. We went over new build. Didn't go super deep into it, but kind of hit all the bulletin points. Don't want to keep you guys too long if you are, watching after this. Anything I didn't cover on that, shoot me a comment, call, text, email, what have you. I'm here to get your questions answered, whether it's before this, after this, during this, what have you. Now on the resale side, like I said, typically when people are reaching out to me, they're asking about new builds or they're interested in the new builds. About 50% of those that actually end up doing something go resale, and we're going to go over why right here. So with resale, typically the prices are lower, so the purchase price will be lower. You know what you're getting. You can drive the neighborhood. It's established. A lot of them, even if it's like 10 years old, you know who lives there, so you see how the neighborhood's responding and how the neighbors are taking care of their homes, if there is an HOA, how well they're doing, how well they're not. For instance, there's a newer construction or newer community in Orange Crest and Riverside. I noticed a lot of the homes were popping up for sale over there. Talked to a few of the neighbors. Turns out that the HOA, it's gone up over $100 in the last 3 years. They were having issues with some of the maintenance that they had going around. So they had to pass that savings on to the homeowner, meaning that they kept raising the prices. There were special assessments in there. They were sending them supplemental taxes to cover some of those exterior issues that were not factored in properly when they actually built the community. So like I said, established neighborhoods, established HOA, you know what you're going to get. You know what the turnover is going to be, and you know how the neighborhood's going to look down the road. Also with resale homes, you could get immediate access to it. So instead of having to wait for, that home to be developed, or, you know, having to deal with like construction issues, building delays, we can ask for a 30-day escrow and get you in within about 30 days. So it's easier to plan around, way easier to work around. Like I said, if you are living with family trying to save up, or, you know, plan around kids' schools, it's much easier on the resale side. Also, you have prime locations, freeway access. So most communities out this way are already developed. And with the newer construction, you're kind of on the outskirts, or they're building in the middle of something that's already developed. With this, it's a little bit easier to plan. Even going to like the store, you know where you're going to go. You know where the shopping's at. You know where the schools are. You could look up actual school rankings, and they're, somewhat as accurate as you're going to find. With the newer construction, you don't know how much those are going to deviate or shift down the road. Also, with resale homes, higher negotiating power. What that means is it's an established home. They're not offering, like a rate buy down. So typically you can save out of pocket, especially with days on market going up. Usually there's more room for, closing cost incentives, getting repairs done, getting different types of warranties, to ease your mind those first couple years you're in the home. A lot of them, like we said, days on market are going up. So gives you a lot more breathing room. You don't have to rush in, make an offer, because there's a wait list of 7 or 8 people behind you waiting to bring that earnest money deposit in. Also with older homes, this is one of my favorite points on it. A lot more unique architectural structure or character, sorry, architectural character. So a lot of the newer homes, nothing against it. What you see is what you get. They pop them up pretty quick. They want more of that, especially in an HOA. They want more of that uniform look and feel. So you don't really have that diversity in the homes amongst the neighborhoods. They'll pop up about 3 or 4 models, and you can kind of negotiate from there. But with older homes, you have a lot more options, a lot more, find something with more character if that's what you're looking for. If you look at like older areas of Riverside or Redlands, they have like full-on Craftsman Victoria style homes. Uh, Different areas of Riverside Redlands, you can find something like mid-century modern if that's what you're into. Now, some of the cons on the resale side, potential hidden repair costs. On here, I do have, when you are buying resale, even with new builds, you should always do a home inspection. When you factor in a lot of these resale homes, especially out here, built like in the 80s and 90s, that's a long time for things to go wrong. That's a lot of deferred maintenance. A lot of the investors, when they go through on these homes, if you are buying something like that, it's 40, 30, 50-year-old home. Typically what they do is they just go through, slap a couple coats of paint on it, redo the flooring, give it more of a modern kitchen, but you don't know what's going on behind those walls. You don't know what's going on underneath the roof and the attic. There's a lot that can go wrong there. Also, HVAC, roofing, plumbing can be older. Your home inspection will turn a lot of that up, but most people don't replace their ACs, every 10 or 15 years. That's not common. So if you're looking at something built in 2000, we're in year 2026 now, you're more than likely going to be looking at something with a 26-year-old AC. They last a lot longer nowadays than they did in the past, but that's something you're going to have to budget for. Currently, an HVAC system, you're looking at anywhere between $8,000 and $16,000, depending on what you need to do. Another con with the resale side, lower energy efficiency. You're looking at stuff with probably single pane windows, very minimal insulation. There wasn't as much of a demand for that back in the day, so there wasn't a lot of technology around it. And you're looking at 30, 40-year-old technology. That's going to translate to your electricity bills. Another con may require modern upgrades. So, most people aren't replacing their kitchen every 10, 15 years. That's not the norm at all. So you could be looking at something with tile countertops, shag carpet. I know I've shown quite a few in Menifee, Sun City that actually have carpet in the bathrooms. Still blows my mind when I see that, especially when it's just redone. But you're dealing with older taste, you're dealing with older finishes. Those rehab costs or costs to just bring things up to modern standards can get pretty expensive pretty quick. So, like I said, anytime you're buying a home, resell, new builds, definitely get a home inspection. That's always one of the first things you should do. And when you get into contract on that side, you have about 17 days typically to get that home inspection. When I am representing you, I do push for it as quick as possible. I would like to get it done within a week, just in case. So if we know there's any issues like that, we know to ask for it really quick. That way, if we can't remedy it, we can move on to the next one. Oh, I do have some questions in here. Okay. With the last live show, how is Perris or Jurupa area for the market? Jurupa is a little more expensive. Days on market's climbing up there a little bit. One of the issues with Jurupa, or I don't want to say issues, but one of the factors for that is Jurupa's a little bit older in most areas. There's a lot of new construction going on there, but not nearly as much as there is on the resale side. Perris, you have a lot of new construction, and I have noticed that Perris's new construction is pulling the average home price up. So when you look month to month, some months Perris's average price will be like 500. The next month it'll be 650, and we'll say in the 650s. Perris, there's a lot of new construction going on, so that's kind of one of the hotbeds for it. The market there is picked up a lot. What's happening is people are getting priced out of Jurupa Valley, just to keep it relevant. Jurupa Valley, Riverside, Menifee, they end up going to Perris. One of the things I like about the city of Perris a lot is they're putting a ton of money into their infrastructure. So a lot of their shopping centers are getting total overhauls, upgrades, and they have a lot there. There's three communities I really like that are right off of Nuevo there. There's a movie theater there. There's a lot of restaurants there, and it's super easy freeway access. I personally think resale because of gas specifically and better construction and quality for your money. I like that. Most of the new communities, probably about 95% of them, it's fully electric now. After 2024, new construction homes started going fully electric, meaning that there's not even gas to stub into. So all your systems are going to be gas, oven, dryer, even water heater. So very good point. I do like that, and I do have that be a killer for a lot of people looking at new homes. They end up going resale because they want that gas option. Moreno Valley. As far as Moreno Valley, Moreno Valley, you're averaging about 550 for your average sale price. Now with the new construction homes, there are some in the low 500s. I think I saw one pop up for about 490. That's more of a townhome style house though. Moreno Valley, there's currently five new construction communities going right now. One of those is almost done. Those are on big lots, so if you want more information, shoot me an email or a text. I'll send you some information on those. Average lot in there is about 10,000 square feet. That one does have an HOA of about $130 a month. And then there are some really good starter homes. I know there's one community in Moreno Valley where they're still offering rates at about 3.99. That's super hard to beat. Now they do have smaller lots. I've sold a few in there. People seem to really like it. It's quiet in there. There's a couple parks nearby. And that one is right in the middle of Moreno Valley. So you got really easy freeway access. There's a Walmart right there. Target's really close. So super convenient. And then the other new build that's actually selling quite a bit is more on the south side of town. Pricing in there is a little bit higher. I think they're more like 625. Lots in there about 7,200 square feet. They don't have the best incentives, but I think they were offering, last time I was in there, about 12,000 towards rate buy down or closing costs. So thank you guys for the questions. I love that. We'll go on to the next slide here. Okay, so now head-to-head on the money comparison, total ownership versus the sticker price. Monthly savings on the new builds, if you can get those rate buy downs, like I said, rates right now are about 6.3, depending on the day. They were down to about 6.125 late last week. They jumped up to about 6.5 earlier last week. So what that means for you, if you could get into one of the new construction homes, or even get a seller on a resale to structure what's called a 2-1 buy down, you can buy that rate down. A lot of new builds will offer more of a permanent rate with a 2-1 buy down on the resale side. It's temporary. It only goes for a year or two, depending on which one we can get. Now those do get pricey, and that's where a lot of those new build incentives end up going to. But if you can go from like a resale at about we'll say 6% versus a new build for the same price at about a 4.5, it's going to save you about $400 to $500 a month. Energy costs on a new build obviously going to be lower. Newer insulation, newer windows, newer technology. So you can save yourself about $200 to $400 a month there. Now with new builds, what I will say, something I should mention actually, anything built after 2020, mandatory solar. So anything after 2020 is going to have solar. Anything after 24 is going to be fully electric. Now with that, a lot of the new construction ones, when they do those solar plans, from what I've seen, they underbuild them a little bit. So you'll see something with like a $40 or $50 a month solar lease. It'll cover a good portion of your utilities. You'll still probably be on the hook to Edison for around $100 a month. So quite a bit cheaper if you're looking at like resale. Something built like in the, we'll say mid 2000s, about 2,500 square feet. If it does not have solar or updated insulation, updated windows, your monthly electricity, you're probably about $400 a month. So definitely something to consider. Yeah, I've noticed more new builds are mostly HOA. Yeah, most of the new builds. I don't think there's anything in Moreno Valley right now that's not HOA on a new construction. San Jacinto has a few, Perris has a few, and it's like 50-50 in those areas. Menifee, I believe they all have HOA in Menifee now. Riverside, yeah, all of them Riverside have HOA too. Now some of the hidden expenses with on the resale side, if you're gonna go through and retrofit, like I was saying on the HVAC side, you could be as high as about 20 grand. When you're doing roof, you're probably anywhere from about 10 to 25, depending on the side of the roof. If you need to do electricity, plumbing on the resale side, you could be as low as 6,000. And that's not something I see as common as most people would think. If you're looking at something, built obviously older, like in the 50s, 60s, you might need to consider that if they haven't done electrical and plumbing in a while. But typically anything built after 80s, 90s, I don't really see a lot of electrical and plumbing issues. Now, if you do have those issues, usually you get your home insurance to pitch in for some of it or cover some of it, just because they do factor in those expenses. Now, maintenance on older homes, obviously you're going to be spending a little bit more. So roof, HVAC, electricity, you're probably going to be spending more. When you get into the maintenance side of it, if you have a lot of deferred issues or you get kind of those handyman fixes or, dad fix it over the weekends, you don't know how long that's going to last. That's not a licensed contractor or plumber typically doing it. So just something to budget and account for. Now, what I see a lot of people do on the resale side is they kind of start setting aside a budget, and as those issues come up, they end up going and just factoring that into their remodel. So like we were saying before, on the resale side, you're getting, older homes. So cosmetically, it's not as up to date. Once you go through and start doing those issues, do one room at a time, because it's easy to bite off a lot more than you can chew. Another issue, I didn't list it on here, but on the new builds, and this is one of the things that trips people up the most, your taxes are going to be a lot lower the first year. Once the county assesses the property at the current market rate, your payment could go up a couple $100 after that first year in your new build. So if you get a new build, you're paying $4,500 a month that first year. Anticipate it to go up to about $4,800 after that. Reason for that is because when they're assessing these parcels, when you're going through escrow on those, they subdivide them, so it's just kind of a figure. It's a rough figure. There obviously hasn't been a purchase there before you bought it if you are the first owner. After that first year, when they actually see the property taxes on that purchase price, that's when it gets assessed. So new builds, pay attention to that. Your payment could go up a couple $100 a month after that first year. Definitely not something talked about very often. I do try and mention in my videos. There's not really a easy way to fit that in there, though, because usually people glaze over after the first 2 or 3 minutes of me talking. So now, with those head-to-head money comparisons, one of the sweet spots, and I think this might be one of the best way to buy a home, look for something around 5 years old if you do kind of want that blend of new build with existing homes, so you know what you're getting into. 5 years, typically the community's a little more established. You see more who your neighbors are and how they're going to take care of their homes, especially in a non-HOA area. That's one of the biggest comments I get is, oh, no HOA, drive through, in 2 years, let me know what you think. Most of them actually stay pretty nice. The climate we're in, where things are a lot more expensive, people are barely getting into these homes. Homes cost a lot more, so there's a lot more incentive, motivation, ambition to take care of what you have. Now, also with those homes that are a little bit older, people have already gone through and started doing those upgrades. So the concrete, if there's going to be a pool, because with the new construction homes, your yard is a blank canvas. You get basically a little square pad of concrete, and then it's all dirt. So if you don't want to deal with like irrigation or having to plan to landscape or trying to, architect all that stuff, look for something a little bit older because typically there's already stuff that's existing. When you get into a new construction home, typically you'll have contractors going through after every phase, offering discounts or offering deals to do the concrete, do the landscaping, do the pools in the neighborhood. Most people take advantage of that. So if you're looking at something like I said around 5 years old, a lot of those issues are taken care of. Also, at that 3 to 5 year sweet spot, anything that's going to break in that community or any blanket kind of builder issues, something that they might not have thought through the right way. That stuff already fell under warranty typically, so it's already taken care of. So it's not something that's going to land on you, 5 years out. Okay, so now we'll go into some of the biggest growth cities that I see. So with new construction homes, the hottest spots right now, Menifee, Eastvale's kind of fallen off a little bit. It's a lot more established than it was maybe about 7 years ago. That was one of the premier spots. Lake Elsinore is booming right now. Jurupa Valley is coming up quite a bit. Banning, and then I didn't list it, but San Jacinto. Banning and San Jacinto are the most affordable cities in the Inland Empire right now. They got a lot more new construction going on than anywhere else. San Jacinto specifically, if you don't want HOA, I know of 4 right now that are going with no HOA, and they have some pretty stellar incentives. Something that could affect new builds though, with going forward, some of the tariffs, construction costs have been going up, so new builders are building that into the price. So even if the market's not moving up, they're going to start building that into the pricing going forward. We don't know what that's going to look like in 6 months. Seems like the news on that is kind of changing hour to hour. But material costs have been rising. They were coming down for a little bit, but once the tariffs started getting threatened and thrown around out there, we noticed a lot of the material costs. They're building in kind of future projections on that. Also, with that said, once materials kind of slow down or we run into issues like we were in 22 because supply chain gets disrupted, those timelines for your new construction, if you're building something from the ground up, it's going to get thrown in there. So if you're buying something now with a September move-in, that could get pushed back to October, November. Not like it was in 21 where people are getting pushed back a year, but I have noticed a lot of them getting pushed back by a month or two. Now on the resale side, some of the strongest inventory, Moreno Valley is always up there. It's always been more of a commuter city. What I've noticed with Moreno Valley, folks move out there, kind of do the equity thing where they let the equity build and then move back to Riverside, Corona. Riverside, a lot of folks move out to Riverside because they get priced out of Corona or Fontana. They'll sell their resale home and then go back out that way. Hemet's always got a pretty good turnover rate. Perris and San Jacinto also, like I said, those are more of the kind of a more affordable community. So people will start out there, let the equity build, save up money, and move back, more coastal or go out towards Menifee, Murrieta, Riverside County. It's always been one of the premier markets for affordability. When folks are looking at LA versus OC and what you get out there for, let's say, $600,000, you're coming out here and you're getting, everything you want: land, newer home, a lot more space, easier infrastructure to navigate with a family. Now I'll talk a little bit about some of the down payment assistance programs. The big one the last several months has been the Dream for All. I believe the lottery is about to expire on that one. The way that one works is if you're a first-time home buyer, first-generation home buyer, you can apply for this. They'll give you up to $150,000 grant that you can use towards your home. So let's say you get the full $150,000 on it. You're looking at a $600,000 home. Your mortgage is going to be basically on a $450,000 home. So saves you, will that be about $1,200 a month, $1,500 a month? That's not available to everybody, unfortunately. When they release the funds for that, it typically goes pretty quick. And like I said, it is a lottery program. So what that means is you apply for it, your name's entered into a lottery. When your section or your basically, we'll call it section, comes up, They pull names from it. I think in Riverside County last year, only about 50 or 60 people got picked for it. So super niche, super small, super hard to get into, but it is a kick-ass program. If you want information on that, I'll get you set up with one of my awesome lenders. Some of the more popular programs. CalHFA is the best one. What CalHFA is, and there's like 10 different ones under CalHFA. So if you're a firefighter, nurse, teacher, there's different programs for that. But if you just aren't don't fall into that bucket, with CalHFA, you could get into a home for as little as 1% down. What that means is they will grant you up to about 5% of the purchase price, or yeah, 5% of the purchase price, and you can use that towards help with your down payment and your closing cost. Now the caveat to that is that 5% or whatever you choose to use from that attaches to the home is what's called a silent second. Doesn't accrue interest, doesn't have to be paid off at any given time, but if you do go refinance the home or sell the home, then it would have to be repaid. So definitely a way to get folks into homes that maybe don't have the resources, or the 30 to 50 grand saved up. Definitely a killer program. Now there's also going to be local programs, Riverside PLHA. That's a pretty tough one to get into. There are some pretty strict requirements, but it acts pretty similar to CalHFA, where you can get up to about $80,000 grants. Home and ARPA, I don't see those done too often, but they work pretty much the same, and those are only in certain areas. There's also one called a USDA loan, where you could get into a home for zero down. The biggest caveat with that one is it's only available in rural areas. So there are parts of Perris where you can use it, but typically it's going to be like Desert Hot Springs and over. Some of the mountain communities going up to like Lake Gregory, Cedar Glen, Lake Arrowhead, you can use that, and you can get in for truly zero down. All right, well, that's all my slides. So if there's any questions in here, fire them away at me, and then I'll start wrapping it up. Okay, so we'll go into, we'll close it out here. So now with the new build versus resale, like I said, it truly is, to your specific needs. So if you're looking for absolute best interest rate and best payment, new builds are probably going to win. If you're looking for, the actual home of your dreams, resale might be the best option. One of the reasons I've always gone resale, I've never bought a new build myself, is because I liked having that existing infrastructure, lower taxes, and knowing what I was going to get in a neighborhood. I have a few kids, so I wanted to know what the school districts were going to look like. I almost did go resale personally a few times, but when I looked at it, I just decided to go resale. A lot of my clients that go new build love them. Like I said, I've been selling for about 11 years. I've only had to resell a couple of them, but it was more life changes, job change. They were looking for something bigger. But new build is a fantastic option. And one of the things I do like about the new homes or new builds is it seems like you get a really cool sense of community right out of the gate. Everyone's super excited about the community. They're watching it build up. It's way easier to meet your neighbors. So that's something I like about those. So like I said, depends on your situation. If you're under a tight timeline, there are new build options for you. Resale typically likes to be new builds. Resale typically is better if you're under a tight timeline, just because you could predict, that 30, 45-day closing. Now with the new builds, there are those quick move-ins that do pop up. You're not going to be able to, pick the countertops, pick the flooring at that point. But resale is a little bit easier to work around if you have more of a strict schedule. So like I said, the real question is, are you buying the monthly payment or are you buying a home? Total cost of ownership always beats the sticker price when making this decision. Something I've noticed with a lot of folks, especially, in those COVID years, people would pass on a home, because the price went up about $5,000. When they went back and looked at that same home 6 months later, price went up by $30,000 at that point. So when you are looking, not saying overpay by 100 grand, but if you're overpaying by a little bit in the long run, I've never really had anybody complain about that. Okay. Yeah, I've noticed more new builds are mostly HOA, which I don't like. Yeah, and that's kind of the rub with it. What I like about Jurupa, where Mission and Golden West and Limonite meet, we usually count that because that's, yeah. So with some of the resale homes and a lot of new builds now, they get deemed high fire zones. A lot of the new construction now, insurance has been a really big pain in the butt with real estate for the last couple of years. A lot of the new construction homes, they have their own insurance providers in there. They always kind of underquote you, so when you get that quote, take it with a grain of salt. Insurance on resale side, it used to be as low as about 1,200 bucks a year. I noticed the average now is closer to about 2,500. New builds, I've had them quote 800 bucks just as recently as a couple months ago. I know it's going to go up to closer to 22 to 2,400 a month. So if you are looking at new builds, take those quotes with a grain of salt. So yeah, like I said, I'll wrap it up here. Any questions I can answer for you guys, reach out anytime. Real estate is my full-time gig. That's pretty much all I do. So days, evening, nights, weekends, what have you, shoot me a call, text, email, whatever you guys need. Big part of what I do is help people game plan. That's why I make these videos is, to help get people in the driver's seat for when they are ready. Most people I have reach out, they're usually about 6 months to a year out. I love it. When you are ready, I want you to know exactly what you're getting into. That way, you're making the most informed, educated decision that you possibly can. Buying real estate, it's no easy feat. It's not a small investment. A lot of intricacies to it. That's why I'm able to make this page with several hundred videos and still come out with new content. So I do post these weekly. Tuesdays I do go live every single week. Typically at 6:30. This week I'm going a little bit early. Kings are on tonight, so I wanted to be able to catch that. But subscribe. Every Saturday I post either a new build tour or pros cons of an area, or just really break down a whole city or geographic area. Those are more heavily edited, so it cuts out a lot of my boring ums and uhs. Anything I can help you with, reach out anytime. Days, evening, nights, weekends, like I said. Shoot me a comment, text, email, what have you. That's all below. Anyways, I'll see you guys next Tuesday. Any questions I can answer for you in the meantime, or any feedback is appreciated. Thank you for watching if you made it to the end here, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.